Welcome back to Hackett Garage. We've got the stove going, it's winter time, and I guess it's probably time that we better start working on these two denali's we've been hanging out with all year. So this one's been in the shop since May. That one just came in last week. We've had other projects in here pretty much all summer working on other stuff. But now I guess we can finally do the heart transplant. If you're new here, don't worry. We got another video that pretty much summed up when I bought these two. You can go check out. But for now, we're gonna get working on the rustier one, get the heart out of it, get it in this one, try to scavenge as many parts off that sucker as we can, keep the cost down low. We're gonna have to buy some stuff from shore as we go on, but let's get started. A little bit of a progress video. I decided not to do a time lapse of taking everything apart on the engine just because there's so much more shit on this thing than there is a small block Chevy that I'm used to working on, so it would be a super long time lapse, probably bore the hell out of you guys. But we've got the intake off, we got most of it unplugged. I hope all the coolant's drained out of it, and hopefully pretty soon we're going to start crawling under it. We'll get the starter out, we'll get the bell housing bolts out, torque converter unbolted, and hopefully we'll be yanking this thing here pretty quick. Checking back in. I think we got everything on this thing unhooked, except I think there's one bracket under the engine that holds the wire in. When I pulled the motor out of that one, I had to lift the engine up a little bit before I could bolt it. So I think that's what we're going to have to do. And unfortunately, we're going to have to pull this motor with the converter. There was one torque converter bolt that I could not get out. And with these things, there's absolutely no freaking room to work on it. And I don't know if this thing's low on compression or not. It turns over really easy. Who knows? Maybe it's just how they are. But we're going to have to wait to pull that one bolt out until we get this thing hanging. We did find on each backside there's a broken manifold bolt, so I unbolted both manifolds. Couldn't get the Y pipe to unbolt off this one. I didn't even try on that one. I'm hoping we'll be able to pull this thing out and not get hung up too bad on the motor mounts. Well, that wasn't exactly the easiest way to pull the motor out, but it's dangling now. I didn't realize when I pulled two of the three torque converter bolts out of it, they was just gonna dangle around. I should have known, but it didn't start doing it until I pulled it out of the tranny. So we got that. Probably have to change the flex plate. It's got a bent ear on it. And when I pulled the motor out of that denali, I didn't have any of the front dress on. I thought I was gonna save some time by leaving it all on there. Cost me more of a headache than I was really hoping. But when I went to go pull this thing out yesterday, it wouldn't come. I couldn't figure out why. But the driver's side engine dowel seized right up in this tranny. So it wouldn't allow the transmission and the motor to split. I put my dad's air chisel in there and chiseled the two apart. Obviously that dowel's stuck in there, so I'll have to either try to get it out or I'll just take it out of the other motor. That's probably what I'll end up doing. Clean them all up. I don't know if I'm going to put it on a motor stand yet or not. We've got 3 manifold studs we got to pull out. So I guess I'll let you know when I figure out what the next step is. It's a few days later, motor's still hanging here. But I've been pretty busy. I got both fuel tanks out. Got all the fuel lines stripped out of both rigs to see which ones are better. This set's out of this denali. They got a tag on them. They were replaced in 2018. They're still pretty good. Those lines are obviously out of the other one, and they're pretty rusty. So, I mean, this is Hackett Garage, but I'm not going to spend all this time putting this motor in that one and making it run with rusty fuel lines. Then that's another issue to deal with later on down the road. So, now we're going to put these ones in. We're going to get the motor all dolled up and ready to go. I went a little bit over budget. And I went and got gaskets. The parts store wouldn't sell me just the rear housing cover gasket or the main seal, so I had to buy the whole kit. We got valve cover gaskets. We got a new dipstick tube. We got oil pan gasket. I guess that's all I got. But we went a little bit over budget just buying those, but they need them because further inspection of this engine, dipstick tube is rotted. Come over here. It's hard to tell, but everything's wet back there, so I figured we might as well just change the gasket and the rear main seal while this thing's out. I think the valve cover over here was leaking. Yeah, it's leaking right there, so change the valve cover gaskets. Then obviously I got the oil pan gasket in case I couldn't pop this out from outside. We'll have to drop the pan and pound it up. But hopefully this engine's not too much of an issue. It's pretty rusty, but it runs. So that's why we're going to put it in this denali. Well, I had to take the pan back off because I had a dumbass moment. And I broke the pan. How, you might ask? Seems like a pretty simple procedure. Well, my new gasket has this piece. Apparently, I didn't realize it when I took it off. I wasn't paying attention. This piece is separate on the original gasket. So it's still up there. And, yeah, it hangs down just enough to where if you try and tighten the fucking bolt, it's going to break the pan. Which is exactly what I did. Oh, man. So, I do have a oil pan outside that's already off an engine. I'm going to take it off and we'll dig it out and see if it's the same. I'm sure it is. But if it's not, I'll just take the pan off the other 6-liter tomorrow. What the heck. It's always something. And we got the new to us pan out of the toolbox it was in. It was all full of water. I got it on the stove. All the ice is melted. I'm just waiting for that water to boil a little bit. Then we're going to go through with some brake clean. Clean all this shit. Clean up the gasket surface. I got the oil life sensor out of the other pan and this one. I'm going to put the one out of the other pan in this one. And we'll get it all cleaned up and get ready to go on the engine and pick up pretty much where we left off. we got 2 of the 3 manifold studs out of the heads. It's pretty simple. I took a 3/8 nut. It slides right over the stud. And then I put this washer behind it just so I had a little bit of a hole in the front of the nut to weld to. I just welded this one on there. I haven't quite tried it yet, but see if it comes free. Oh, look at that. Oh, wow. It's a little tight, but come on. 14mm wrench doesn't really like going on a warp nut. Well, we lucked out, and we got all 3 studs out. This one came right out. Luckily, the threads weren't messed up on any of them. But now I'm going to go back through with a tap, and I'm going to do all of them on every cylinder just to make sure that we're good to go and we don't have any issues. Next step, I'm just plugging away at this thing. The motor's pretty much ready to go in. I decided to keep going over budget, and I got brand new tranny lines for it. It was like $60 for the pair, a little bit over that. But these ones, it's hard to tell in the video, but they were wet and a little rusty. So I said, screw it. Rather than finding out that they're bad, we're driving this thing, motor's out, why not just change them? So we're going to do that while we're here. The ones in that one were just as rusty, maybe even rustier. So it only makes sense. I mean, it's just cheap insurance. That way we don't have to wrestle with them when the engine's back in. But we're getting closer. We are so close to dropping that thing in, it's not even funny. Gotta do the tranny lines, cut that manifold off, and I'm pretty sure it's ready to drop in. Seems so unreal that this thing's gonna be getting this heart. But finally time, if you're still watching, we've got the brand new tranny lines in, we got the converter in, got that manifold off. We buttoned up this thing, and we got the oil cooler lines on the side of it. We took the ones off the 6-liter that was originally in this because they were way better than the rusty ones that were on it. We've got the other dowel put in. We cleaned up where the bell housing meets. We added a little longer of a chain. When I pulled this motor out, this thing was sitting on the ground, but now I got it up in the air, and I really don't want to lower it. Makes it easy to crawl underneath it. So I guess let's see if my chain's long enough, and hopefully we can set this thing in there. Well, it's finally in there. It's a little bit of a struggle by myself, but it is what it is. The important thing is it's in there. It's on the transmission. We got 2 bell housing bolts in it. It's on the dowels, on the motor mounts. So now I got to go through and bolt everything up, make sure all the special brackets are back in their homes, and play the game of remembering where all the wiring went. So I guess that'll do it for this video. Next time you guys see this thing in the next video, I'm going to be finishing up some loose ends. We'll put the gas tank back in it. We'll finish up the fuel lines. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll touch this thing off. Like, comment, subscribe. And I work by myself quite a bit, so that should be no excuse for you. Get to working on your project too.